Halloween is way more than just costumes and candy. This ancient holiday is steeped in mystical tradition that dates back over 2,000 years to the Celtic festival of Samhain. We have our go-to astrologer, Stevie Calista, here to discuss the deeper meaning and how it has morphed into modern day tradition. We'll also talk about where this falls from an astrological perspective and what we should all keep in mind right now. There is a lot to discuss. Let's get going. Hi, Stevie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, this is fun.
I agree. Let's talk about what Samhain is, and we're just proud that we can say it. Because it is not spelled, everybody, in the way that you would think. It's spelled Samhain. Can you talk a little bit about what is the Festival of Samhain?
Yeah, it's basically the celebration between the equinox and the solstice, so the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. And the halfway point actually is going to be November 7th when the sun is at 15 degrees of Scorpio. That's the true Samhain halfway point. But we tend to celebrate it on October 31st, which is Halloween, or November 1st, which is the Day of the Dead. But it's basically this ancient Celtic festival where we really honor that the veil is thinning and that we're honoring the dead. We're honoring our ancestors. And if you think about it too, it's really like the leaves have fallen for a lot of the Northern Hemisphere. And so it's really honoring the darkness in us. And it's about this time of transition, reflection, life, death, life cycles. So it's very Scorpionic. And all of the Wheel of the Year, all these Celtic celebrations are all astrological. They're all seasonally based because we were so in tune with the seasons and with the sun at that point in time. So we really honored what was happening in nature, which is happening in us, essentially.
Can I ask just for you to define what you mean by the veil is thinning? Because we use that term a lot, and I always find it a little creepy. In a way, I think some people might not be 100% clear on what that actually means.
Absolutely. That can be confusing. When the veil thins is when we're dancing in Scorpio season. So when the sun is in Scorpio season, which happens on October 22nd, is the start of that, we start to notice that the veil is thinning, which means that Scorpio season is the invitation of that archetype is about going into your caves and visiting what has been tucked away in your traumas and your shadows, which is all those pieces and parts of us that have been hurt or really in the mix of human psychology or human behavior. So it's the stuff that we tuck away, basically. So when the veil thins, it just means that the energy gets heightened, because if you think about Scorpio, it's water and it's very intuitive. It's one of the most intuitive signs that there is. So we can literally connect with those who have passed easier, and we can connect with our intuition easier. We're more intuitive. So if you have a lot of Scorpio in your chart, you will naturally have this, but everyone has this during the season because the sun is in that sign. So it's lighting up that energy. So the veil thinning means that our ancestors and those who have passed are closer to us. They're always there. It's just that we can connect with them easier during this time.
That's so helpful. And I think it's a better definition. I love the astrological perspective. That really helps.
It's funny, and just from a personal perspective, I think about my dad's birthday is November 17th. Is a Scorpio. And I love hearing that definition because of the knowing that I have of this connection that he and I have from the other side and me here. And that being his sun sign, I honestly haven't really looked into the rest of his sign. I don't know his birth time, but I feel like that's so interesting.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Right?
I never thought
like,
of either.
yeah, that he is a Scorpio and that time of year. I never realized that was what it meant, that the veil is thinner during that time.
Yeah, and Scorpios really are the ones that have the knowing. They can meet somebody and know instantly what's behind their veil, right? So it's like they know why they do what they do, or they can sense into why people's behavior is the way that it is, basically, without even them doing much. It's just like a deep intuitive knowing. And this is why Scorpio energy can feel very private, because they have a hard time trusting because they can see behind the veil. Does that make sense?
Yes. They know what's really going on.
Absolutely.
Without them saying it. Yeah.
I always find too that Scorpios can size up a situation.
Exactly. I know.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I do.
That's
Yeah.
And going back to this festival that dates back all these years, what were the similarities between that and then our modern day Halloween?
Yeah, what happened is mostly, maybe all of the pagan holidays were Christianized at one point or another because they still wanted those celebrations. And so they morphed it into something that would fit the Christian belief system. And so, like, even Christmas, that's the winter solstice, technically. And on Christmas Eve is when the sun starts to rise again. That's a whole nother conversation we should totally have sometime. But the Christmas energy is actually the winter solstice and the sun rising again. So the sun being born. So these are just examples of the ways in which the Christian religion took the pagan holidays because they were already celebrating at that time and they didn't want to let go of those traditions. And it's interesting with Halloween, right? Because it's still, no matter what has happened, we've kept it. Like we've
Yeah,
kept,
exactly. Because
you
they
know,
did
like,
was all about food and drinking, and they actually wore costumes.
to ward
To
off.
ward off evil spirits, yeah, which is so interesting.
And then I read about them going door to door, but for asking for good fortune.
Yes.
Is that where the trick or treat
Yes,
comes
that's
from?
where the trick or treat came from. Just like Hallmark, we've turned days into
Yes,
commercialism.
we have. Yes, we've commercialized these things.
Yes, yes. But that tradition is really steeped in going to door and asking for blessings. And really, everyone was feeling at that time that there was spirits around. You will notice this. Like, just pay attention. You'll be able to feel into things more than normal, especially if that's not your normal. So people would wear costumes to ward off spirits because they're closer to us, meaning we can feel them more.
Now, like the skeleton makes sense, right? And even the pumpkin, they would put the candle in it and it would be like a fire. So that was also supposed to not only illuminate, but ward off the evil spirit. It's so interesting to know it. All that symbology actually means something.
Yeah, and that's true for almost every holiday. Like same with the Christmas tree, there's meaning behind why we would bring a Christmas tree in. And I think the pumpkin even has some sort of symbology. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think they carved into it too to ward off evil spirits. So they carved spooky faces into the pumpkin to do that as well.
So fun because now, as we're doing those things, we can explain to our kids or our family members there's a why. It's not just tradition.
Yeah, and even with Scorpio season, I noticed within myself, I don't know if you guys notice this, it's easier for me to honor my darker side. I'm almost like so close to it that, which means I'm willing to honor those shadowy bits in me, like my anger, or it's just easier for me. I just screw it. That's just who I am. And I'm able to explore it more because I'm accepting that this is the season to do it. So everyone can really do that this season. It's just honor your human shadowiness, like all of those parts of you that maybe you wouldn't honor before that.
I love that tip. We're
Have
always
it.
trying to circumvent or get over or fix ourselves in some way. And the idea of being able to just honor all of it as part of who we are, that's cool.
Honor your demons. That's what it means.
And we were just talking about, we all have different things going on, but there is this kind of angsty part of us at the moment. And that most people we are talking to are going through something, and giving people permission to just feel it, let it out, just let it out. Try not to let it out on somebody else, but let it out.
Or maybe wear that devil costume for a day.
Yeah, let the witches come out. This is the time where that was normal. That was accepted. And it's interesting this year too, like astrologically, because we went through eclipse season during Virgo season and during Libra season. And so Scorpio season this year specifically always is a time of reflection and going inward. This is really where we are honoring our deepest darkness because the sun is at its darkest point heading into the solstice. This is the halfway point where it gets real dark, right? From this Samhain energy, which is technically on November 7th, all the way until the winter solstice on December 21st. It's the darkest time. So that's why we feel it. There's less light. So we're like, oh, well, we're more dark. So let's honor it. But this year specifically, we went through eclipse season right before this. And so there's an invitation here to really integrate, is what I'm hearing. Integrate what has happened to you. Honor all of these things. Let yourself be a little depressed. Let yourself be sad. Let yourself be rageful. It's okay. We're going to come out in Sagittarius season in November and it's going to be lighter. I swear, I promise. But this is where we can really reflect on what just happened. Because like you said, everyone in my life, everyone has something really big has happened to them. And that's eclipse season. This is, we're starting to come out of it right now.
Yeah, I feel that. It was rough. It was emotional, and it's been rough.
Yes. And even the non-eclipses of full moons and new moons in this time have been super intense. They weren't like rainbows and sunshine full moons. They were really,
Goodness.
I think for many people, it was really triggering.
yes.
So it was almost a foreshadowing of all of the dark stuff. I couldn't agree more.
And listen, when this is coming, we're posting this the week of Halloween 2024. And we know there's a lot of other stuff going on in our country. and the
Yeah.
energy feels a little heavy.
That's the thing. You will often hear people say, oh, why do I feel so down or depressed or heavy? And if you have a lot of Scorpio in your chart, you might tend to have those cycles where you feel like you can't get up, or there's certain times of the year where you're going to feel like even heavier, but everyone's going to feel a little bit dark, a little bit depressed right now. And it's just let yourself go into the cave.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. I think about also in most states within the United States, we're turning our clocks back. Is it back?
Are we still
Yes.
doing that?
And so I always get a little more depressed because the fact that the sun, I know in Chicago, will end up going down somewhere at 4 o'clock or whatever it is. It just,
Chicago is a rough place because you're right on the edge of the
right? There's something about,
Yeah, and with the time change, it's still darker in the morning, so you don't even want to get up out of bed because it's cold and dark.
it's cold and dark.
We're just meant to lean into that energy. And maybe one day we'll stop doing this crazy time change. And
Brutal.
It is brutal.
We do.
Like,
No
I
one
mean,
likes
no, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So it's like all the things, all the reasons that
Yeah.
this time, if you've ever felt this before, now you actually have some validation for the why.
every year.
Stevie, that's why we love you so much, because there's always a reason. It's just we don't always know what's going on. We don't know from an astrological perspective that there is actually a reason. And then understanding our charts actually help us even more. But just as a whole, to understand how the calendar and how all of this astrological impact is hitting us is so helpful.
Are there any other days that we should look out for in November? We'll probably talk again, but even in this time frame, you mentioned November 7th being the true halfway point.
November 1st, we have a new moon in Scorpio, and that's at 9 degrees. So that's like a fresh start. That's like the first new moon in Scorpio, meaning there's a new beginning in this watery signs. And my advice for Scorpio season in general is really let yourself be. I'm seeing a picture of going by the water and just like seeing what comes through. Because you have to remember you're more intuitive during this season. So everyone has this gift right now, and it is a gift. So use it to just listen, hear what's going on behind the veil, that you're closer to that. So really give yourself time to commune with that. And something else too that I love to do during this time of year is make an ancestors altar. I do it every year. You can look it up on YouTube, but like that just really consists of you putting some photos of those you're connected to that have passed, maybe putting some of their favorite colors, maybe some of their things that they had. People like to give them a little glass of water, maybe a cigarette or a cigar if they were smokers, anything that you're just honoring them and saying, I see you, I'm making a connection with you during this time of year. They really appreciate it. They
Love doing
really
that.
love being honored in this way in the physical world. And I always tell myself too, everything I'm doing over here is affecting them over there and vice versa. Just because I'm physical and they're not doesn't mean that like what I'm doing isn't changing their karma on the other side. So you can still have this connection with them and ask them for support, ask them for guidance. There's so many things you can do, but just really honoring your ancestors, like Day of the Dead and the Hispanic cultures, it's a really big deal. You put your photographs up and you talk to them, and they literally believe that they're right there during this period of time, which that's what we're talking about. They really are. They're ready to chat with you. And even if you don't hear them, you're going to feel them. That's the thing about this season. So there's that. And then we have a full moon on the 15th of November, and that one's in Taurus. And that one's very electrical. We should probably have a whole conversation about it.
Okay. Everybody listening, we will.
Going on the calendar.
But just to give you a little tidbit, this is one where Saturn will be moving direct on that day, meaning you're going to feel Saturn's energy, which is very karmic and heavy and get your work done. And you're going to feel the weight of the world. And it's conjunct Uranus.
Oof.
So there's this big push-pull here between holding the structure and your responsibilities and also like liberation and complete change and unexpected events happening. So that one's a big one. And Taurus is all about resources and stability and security. Yeah, that's a big one. Just the last full moon in Aries was
Yeah. This last full moon was a doozy.
a doozy. This one's a doozy with different planets, but still a doozy. And then we have Mercury stationing and will be retrograde on the 26th of November. So that week before the 26th, from the 17th to the 23rd, you're going to feel technology slow down. Your brain's going to slow down. Everything's going to start to stand still for a little bit. And we move through December with Mercury retrograde.
Was that last year too? Did we?
Yeah, last year was December into
Yeah,
the new.
that's what I thought, into the new year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one's end of November into December. And then Mars will be retrograde too in December and January and February. And that's a whole nother conversation on how we start the new year. Yeah.
I remember feeling that last year too.
Yeah, I do too.
There isn't really necessarily much of a break in the astrological energy. And I don't know if there will be going forward because it's like, it's time, it's go time with the cosmos, right? For us to like really up level, which means we got to go through that tunnel, the squeezy tunnel.
Yeah. And that we're really being pushed.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why things slow down though, too, so that you feel into it. Yeah. And at least knowing that, that feels a little bit better. It's okay. It may not be comfortable per se, but at least there is a reason behind it. And then we will come out on the other side. Because I remember feeling that same exact thing last year. And it took a minute after January, but then things felt so much better.
Yes. And that's the thing too, like this season specifically, there's just like a lot of energy around being present because when the energies happen, you're going to be forced to do it anyway. And we have Pluto at the last degree of Capricorn for the next couple of weeks. So this is the end of that cycle that we spoke about on our last.
Right.
So this is where your own life will crumble, like systems and structures that were stable are going to crumble around you and in the collective as well. I was literally hearing a message for that last full moon, like, where are you at war within yourself? And we're just seeing that on the world stage. And that's still the case right now. Until that new moon, we're still in that Aries full moon energy.
When is the date where it officially changes with Pluto?
That is technically, Pluto goes into Aquarius on November 20th. November 19th is the last date that Pluto will be in Capricorn.
Which is interesting to me with what you said about the full moon on the 15th. We know full moons are a release of some sort. And I know we're going to talk about that separately in the coming weeks. Just a heads up to people, though, that November seems like it's full of a lot of lessons, people.
Yes, a lot of lessons. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's another reason why I'm really glad that Thanksgiving's there. It'll give us something to look forward to.
That's true. Wow. Yeah, that Pluto and Capricorn, for those listening, this is a big deal because it's the last time it'll be in Capricorn in our lifetime.
Very big deal. And the last degree of a sign is one that is frantic and hurry up, we got to finish what we started in 2008, right? So this is the very last like note in that cycle. We're seeing it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
As usual, thanks for the map to help us navigate.
Yeah. And now we understand a bit more where Halloween comes from. And we can talk a little bit more about where Christmas may have some roots in the coming months. And now we're armed with information.
Yes.
Honor your shadow, guys. Honor your darkness. It's like you can handle more of the spooky. I feel like that. I'm not very good at that normally, but like I can handle more of my, like we're strong in Scorpio season.
Yeah, I get that. I was telling Stevie before we started my download for this week also had in it that we came equipped to handle this.
Oh, and also have some fun if you can.
Yeah.
I'm going to wear that witch's costume with pride this year.
Yes.
A whole different sass than it maybe last year.
You're totally. I'm going to eat some candy corn.
Yeah.
So,
enjoy the darkness.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear there. That's the beauty of the sunlight coming into the darkness. There's a flashlight. That's why we can handle it more. That's why like it's being illuminated for us. So you can honor it. Don't be scared of it. You can actually have a life cycle here. This is really where alchemy happens, where you can transform into a new version of yourself because there's a light on.
Ooh, that is a really powerful way to think about it, Stevie.
Yeah,
that's
like
really helpful. All right, let's go get them.
I'm holding your hands as we go through these next several weeks.
Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you so much, Stevie.
Thanks for having me.